This is the Bear Country Outdoors Barely a Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Joyce, and with me is James Forsland and Chris Cantrell. Thanks for joining. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. We have another special guest tonight, and Chris, you should introduce this guy again.
This is a good friend of mine and good hunting buddy, Matt Russell.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And why is he here, Chris?
Well, not only is a good friend and hunting buddy and fellow expert gun enthusiast, but him and I just went on a hunt to Alberta, and we're going to talk about some of that hunt in Alberta.
Oh, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a part two.
Part two, yeah.
It's a part two.
Part two.
But before we get started, we had a subscriber giveaway. So we want to thank everyone who subscribes not only to our YouTube channel, but our Instagram. And I'm going to grab a pair of Jim Green boots in size 10.5. And we want to thank Backcountry Boneheads Colton Cannon for subscribing. And we're going to send you a pair of 10.5, hopefully, I think you're 10.5, boots all the way to Montana. And thank you very much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Way to go.
Let's get into it. So
Yeah.
where are we starting out here, Chris?
Let's dig in.
Well,
should we let the special guest go first
Well,
on what he had to experience?
To be fair,
To be fair.
Matt was the first guy to tag out in camp. And not only did he tag out, but he tagged out in grandiose fashion. He shot 2 bears in one night.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Man.
And it took a lot of self-control. I mean, technically, I could have tagged out the first night. There was just tons of bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And waiting for the big one was very hard because they're all bigger than what I see in Washington.
Oh, yeah. 100% probably.
So I will have to say that the first evening in camp, went out and spent 2 hours terrified in a tree stand.
Why?
Not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of heights.
Explain to me why you were terrified.
I heard a little bit of the story. I want to hear it from
I haven't
you.
heard it.
Oh, not see now. I want to hear your version first because that would be more entertaining for me. But high tree stand,
Okay.
no harness, big wind. Most of the time when I've gotten in tree stands, it's like there's a ladder.
Yeah.
So this had tree screws.
Yeah. Okay. So there's tree spikes you climb in.
Blew my underwear out climbing up. They were spaced out so far. I got up part way.
How high up was it?
I don't know. I mean, from the picture, it was on a hillside going away, so you started much lower
Oh, okay.
than where the bait was.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm going to say at least probably 30 feet.
Yeah.
Those are
You
like
know.
tearing your groin trying to reach the next tree spike kind of?
Yeah, and then there wasn't a tree spike.
Oh, no.
And I'm not a little guy, and the guide's not a little guy.
They're
And I
limited
said,
on the tree spikes, Jim.
And
Are
I'm
they
like-
running low or?
I'm like, there isn't. I can't find a spike to grab, and he's like, oh, we'll just grab that nub of where a branch used to be, and I'm like, I'm not sure about that nub.
Right.
I made it up, and I'm sitting there, and I'm good, and I had bears coming in right off the bat. Well, I had one bear come in
Yeah.
6 different times,
Really?
and I got to the point where I was like, if it comes in one more time, I'm going to shoot it. And then it came in, I'm like, well, no. I'm sending pictures like, this looks like a good bear, like
Yeah.
all day long here.
Yeah.
And sat, but then the wind kicked up. And the tree's moving, and I couldn't relax. Like, I'm used to being able to relax. Like, there's no armrest. There's one branch I can hold on to, and it's behind me.
And you don't have a harness.
And finally, after 2 hours, I probably wouldn't even have climbed this tree stand at all.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact that I'm like, everybody at camp's going to hear about it.
And they're all
I'm
going to
gonna
give you
get
shit,
just
right?
Tons of it. I'm never going to live it down. And by the way, I'm climbing, and I asked the guy because he was a little bigger than me. I'm like, well, I mean, this is a tiny little deal. And he goes,
Right.
oh, I've never been up in that. I've never been in that tree stand. So I texted him like, I'm done with the tree stand. My nerves are shot.
Right.
Like, I'm starting to cramp out because I'm just so nervous. Once the bear quit coming in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When the bear was coming in, I was fine. But then when it was dead and wind, and so anyways, I got out of there covered head to toe in pitch from just humping this tree, being so
Stay alive.
I mean, there's no armrest. It's like a 12 by 8-inch stool on top
Right.
of expanded metal. So got down, got taken to another spot. And by the way, the bear got there within the first 10 minutes of
Really?
being on station. Went to another spot within the first 10 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating. I had 3 bears come in.
Really?
And the
Those
one
bears are hungry.
Yeah.
the one that was in the back was the biggest one.
Yeah.
Right.
Never came in.
Really?
Yeah. And
He knew something was up.
they were there till dark, till it was time to go out, which was like, 10:30,
Yeah.
11 o'clock at
Yeah,
night.
yeah. It was
You know,
late.
shooting light would end.
Yeah.
He's probably been shot at. And he was like, I ain't going in there in the light time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just kept, and they would take off and run, and they were just there for hours. So then the next night, well, we were having a competition between everybody on who got the longest bear. And the guide's like, hey, I got a camera up at the site. There's never seen this bear before. He's not the thickest bear, but he's really long and tall. Mm-hmm. He goes, you want to go into the spot? And I'm like, yeah, as long as it's not in a tree stand.
Yeah.
So,
Does a bear shit in the woods?
yeah.
You're damn right I want to go in there.
To be fair to Matt, like the tree stands were like, think of like the
To be
old
fair.
school, like the seat is like the size.
Oh, yeah.
It's a tiny little seat and then a little platform, and you can't tell on the internet, but Matt's a large man, and there's no like safety hoop.
Is this was this a homemade tree
No,
stand?
I don't
No,
think so. But
but
it
it-
was 2 foot by 2 foot. The platform you stand.
It's like
on.
a
Yeah,
$39 Walmart type. It's not more than $40.
That's a buy in bulk tree stand.
It's a buy. Yeah, it's a
100%.
I think I was more nervous about having to climb down it in the wind, right? Like I'm sitting here, I can grab this one branch, I'm good. But pretty soon I'm going to deal with my rifle, my pack, and try to scale down this thing. And it worked out fine. But yeah, so second spot came at 3 bears. The big one didn't come in all the way, sat there all night. So the next day he's like, I got this bear. It came in, never seen it before, but it's going to score good for you. So they were long quad rides in and stuff too, right? Riding double and stuff. Get in there. I'm trying to self-film for the first time, getting all set up. I get a text, and he says, hey, I just passed a really good boar on the way out. It's headed towards you. Like, okay, well, why, maybe I should go get that, but they don't want you out of the blinds. They don't want
right.
You should have said, turn around and chase it to me.
Right. Drive it. Drive it.
Drive it in here.
So from the time he texted me and I texted him back and I had a bear down was 12 minutes.
Oh, really?
So I had this bear come in. It came in on the back side of the drum, which we were using for size. Mm-hmm. Its back was way over the top of the drum, but I didn't realize the ground was actually higher in the back than it was in the front.
Yeah.
But it came around, spotted me off the bat, had a big, thick head, shot it, ran right, did a couple circles, ran right towards me, started just peeling out. And I'm like, well, I don't want to track this thing, but I thought I'm shooting an ultra mag. I'm thinking I had a pretty good shot on it. So I whacked it again. And 20 yards away, it just fell.
Nice.
Great moans, the whole deal. I could see it
Yeah.
from where I was.
Yeah, that's always a really good feeling.
Oh, the best.
Right,
5,
Chris?
yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
5 minutes later, there's another bear.
So you're still sitting in the blind.
I think I was still sitting in the blind and saw the other bear come in. And I'm like, you're trying to judge it, whatnot. It's coming in cautiously. But that bear left. I snuck out. I had told the guy, and he's like, well, do you want to sit there longer, or you want me to come get the bear? So whatever you think's, best. I mean, is another bear going to, well, yeah, sure enough, another bear comes in. It starts messing with my bear. I'm sending these guys pictures because there's quite a few guys that hadn't seen a bear yet.
Oh, I'm super pissed. This day too, I haven't seen a bear.
So I'm on.
It's like,
Okay.
oh, these bears are messing with my bears.
coming
that I
in.
killed.
I
Yeah.
just shot one already. and it's-
Bears.
Yeah.
I'm about to shoot another one.
Just sending pictures. I'm sending them videos. I'm 25 minutes into night 2 of hunting. I'm on my 6th bear.
Yeah.
What a dick.
And that's part of why I was doing it, as I tend to be a
Yeah.
dick. And so I'm sending these pictures of this other bear, and I'm trying to scare it off. It's messing with my dead bear.
Yeah.
It's rolling around.
A great looking bear, by the way.
And they all start going, oh, it was beautiful coat.
Beautiful bear. Had a brown muzzle, and the brown went around its eyes.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, dude, I haven't seen a bear. No one's seen a bear. Matt's like, oh, I'm sick of these bears messing with my dead bears. We're just like, I got bears messing with my dead bear.
Yeah, I'm shooting video and of all the bears and sending it to them, and they're like, you're going to shoot 2 in one night. And you're like, I'm not going to shoot that bear. It's not big enough. It's smaller than the other one.
Yeah.
And probably an hour went by, and the guy's like, hey, I'm going to come in and get you. And so I checked my phone. I don't know how long it had been, but he had said that wasn't the bear I saw, obviously, because the bear I saw driving out was a kilometer away. So it couldn't have made it to you, and you responded back with bear down in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So you shot another bear. I'm like, okay. So he's like, I'm going to come in. And I'm like, okay. Put the phone down. Something's over my shoulder. I turn around and just see this bear. I mean, it's 9 feet away from me, I'll say. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I turn over and look at it, it turns and looks right at me. And I just see these scars. And there is no shot. It's a bunch of 2-3 inch trees. It's thick over here. And the bear blasts. Grab my phone. Hold on. I'm looking, trying to see where it went. He's like, what? I'm like, there's a bear. Just leave. I'm good. 10 minutes goes by. I'm looking over my right shoulder, and I see a black flash, but probably 50 yards away.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, sweet. It's coming back in. Cause that looked like, and he's asking me, is it a big bear? And I go, well, it's like 8 feet away. It looked pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, another 10, 15 minutes comes by. The other bear is gone. The one that was messing with my dead bear. It popped in and out a few times. And all of a sudden, that big bear with the scars comes in, and right in the background is the other bear. And it's growling and getting mad. And I'm like, dude, you're way too small to mess with this big bear.
Oh, yeah.
So, same thing. I whacked it. It ran the other way and just piled up into a tree 20 yards away.
Nice.
So now I'm texting him. I mean, it's down. No noises, nothing. I'm like, that was a big bear. And I knew it was the same bear because I could see all the scars.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there. I got 2 dead bears. They're like 40 yards away from each other.
Yeah.
And now I got this third bear coming in. This is the same damn bear that was in there for hours.
So you're
messing with the
shooting,
other
and this
ones.
thing is just still sitting there, just hanging out.
Yeah, it may have disappeared for a minute. I mean, I tried to watch the bear
Right.
once I shot it, but it still came in.
That's crazy.
And it sat there on the bait, eating. And there's a dead bear, and there's a dead bear.
Wow.
Mouth on 20 sides. And I was like, I can't believe I just shot 2 bears in 2 nights.
Tagged out the second night.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But awesome. But then also your hunt's
It's
over.
Yeah.
and you're like, what are you going to do? But yeah, it was.
Cry a river is what you're going to do.
I was not crying a river.
Oh, my God.
That's
So
for sure.
sad. 2 bears in one night.
It was, we had to put 2 bears on one quad with 2 big guys out through the mud box. I mean, it was terrible.
Oh, so hard.
That sounds awesome.
It's not like hauling an elk out in freezing temperatures by
Right.
yourself for miles. No, I was super jacked, and that bear is an ugly, big old brawler of a bear. So
It's a freaking stunner, dude.
It's-
It's incredible.
Nice.
yeah. And so I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I got so many texts at night, like, you got to shoot that other bear. You got to do 2 in one night, and
Yeah.
just sat there. Like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I want to get a bigger one.
Yep.
And it happened. And, that's really kind of the amazing thing, too,
Right.
is that having that much action.
Right.
In that
And
short
that would
time.
be super fun.
Oh, yeah. And then Chris,
Did Brandon measure yours yet? That skull on that one?
not that I know of.
It's a big skull.
Yeah.
And he was like, didn't you say he had a broadhead mark or a shot or something?
It had like claw marks and bite marks.
Its face was like scabs. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
He was brawling.
oh, big time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like straight up, like
it almost looked like he had a chunk taken out above one eye, and then he had a bunch of spots on his forehead,
like claw marks,
and then he had some
nice.
on
I'm
his
sure these
shoulders.
bears are like very competitive over the baits.
well, plus
yeah.
it's a rut, right? You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, none of them looked like they'd happened that day, but they didn't look like they were years old either.
no,
I mean, they were this season.
Yeah, for sure, because they were scabbed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rough looking bear, but
Oh, dude,
I
awesome.
like that in amount when you have
Character
that.
bear was,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
I
I
think
wonder
it just
if when they come out like in the springtime and they got all these baits out and they're hammering them probably like immediately because
Yeah.
they're probably super hungry. I'm sure they're like fighting each other like right off the get go.
I would think so.
You know, all these big bears are probably coming in and kicking all the other little bears' ass, getting them off the bait. And then, you know, as time goes on, you know, you guys went end of May, right?
Well, I watched a lot. I got to see a lot of bears that week, and there was a lot of small bears that would be hanging out on baits for hours and hours, and they would come in and get pushed, but they wouldn't like be gone.
No.
They would come back a few minutes later, and you know, didn't see any major brawls. Watched some really cool bears playing with each other and stuff. You know, wrestling and stuff, which was
It's just
so
a cool
cool.
way to watch bear behavior.
Yeah.
right?
oh
Like,
for sure.
Observe.
Yeah.
The pictures.
Well, especially little bears, you know, since they're not getting taught, you know, that's always been a thing. Like when we go goose hunting, all these geese, they figure it out, you know, they're getting shot at a lot. You know, these big bears, they've probably been in there and noticed something, or they've been shot at already, and the little bears, they haven't had any recollection or had no idea that anything was in there other than it's
Yeah.
dinner time.
Or and even if they did, they might just be like, whatever.
Yeah, they're young and dumb.
The bigger the bear, the more cautious and the more slow they came in, for sure.
Yeah.
got some killer B-roll.
Yeah.
Matt took some video while he was there of like not only on his phone, but we gave him a camera a couple different times, and he's got video. Well, another guy that we went with, JC, who unfortunately had a equipment malfunction, but he shot at a giant bear, and Matt got that on video.
Yeah.
And but just a bunch of like him and JC were like the luckiest freaking guys. They saw bear after bear after bear after bear the whole trip.
Yeah.
And so they got like video of like
I
bears.
have a lot of the bear video from the GoPro.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like
Yeah.
they're crawling up.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I got tons and tons of B-roll of bears.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's pretty freaking
I went
cool.
through a bunch of those SD cards, and there was a bunch of videos of bears.
On the GoPro?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nice.
Matt got a ton of footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some good video of the bears climbing up the tree and hanging from the pole, and
Oh.
trying to get the beaver. They're like hanging there with their arms, like without their legs, like
Oh,
just
yeah.
on their arms, like trying to bite at the bucket and biting at the beaver. Oh yeah,
That's cool.
the
they're doing
first
everything
night,
they can to get that beaver.
yeah.
they were hanging and walking on top of the pole.
Yeah.
Hanging by their mouths on a lot of the beavers would have, you know, buckets around them, so it wasn't too
Right.
easy.
Yeah, so they
they
couldn't
would hang
get to
from the
it.
bucket and just sit there,
So
or
the
get the bucket like almost stuck on their heads. I mean, it was super fun to
beaver.
watch.
The beaver is the number one, like bait. That's what they want the most.
Probably meat. I bet you.
Well, we were told by our guide that like you should never go with a guide that doesn't use beavers, and I'm like, this is, I don't know about Matt, I think, but like this was like my first guided hunt. You know, Matt's been to South Africa. I've been to South Africa, and like you can't
You
just
have
like
to.
willy nilly go there
Right.
and start
Yeah.
flinging bullets and stuff. But so it was like our first like real guided hunt, and so I mean I don't know, you know, so we're just kind of taking his word as gospel, you know.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, you got to use beaver." I'm like, "Yeah, we're not allowed. That's like really illegal back home." So I don't know.
Yeah, I would say definitely the bears were all more interested in the meat than in the grain and garbage food, you know, grease they're dumping and the
Yeah.
you know, food in the barrels. You know, the smaller ones couldn't get up to it as easily, right?
yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I even had the first in the tree stand the first night, they had like a metal cage that they had the bait in. It was the only one I was at that didn't have it hanging on a pole. And eventually that bear climbed up the tree and stood on top of the cage to reach down in it and get the last of it. Because like I said, it came in 6 times.
Wow.
You know, and I was like, oh,
they really
it'd be really cool just to shoot a bear out of a tree. Like that's just
Yeah.
standing in a tree broadside, right?
Yeah, these bears are definitely trained. You got that many baits going on with the same thing.
Oh, they just know that.
They just know it's
that's
like
a food place.
Yep.
Well, and it's interesting because he also said I got to go on the longest quad ride, but you were in the Argo for a much longer ride.
That was a long ride.
But so I was on a couple long quad rides, and they're all on trails, and they're just quad trails. Mm-hmm. They're not wide, but they all have trap lines on them. Guys up there trapping. So these bears will roll down these trails, and every half a mile there's a trap that might have something in them for them to eat.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not only like bait stations. I mean, you could walk trap lines and literally see
Maybe
bears.
that's why they are so onto the beaver, because they're probably getting after all them trapped beavers.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because my old man's always told me that the bears, for some reason, they like that really sour meat.
This is like Brent saw a bear that he did not shoot at because it was missing all its hair on its neck.
Oh,
and they
yeah.
figured it was from getting caught in one of the traps on the trap lines.
Yeah. They had a ton of snares everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the guys, quite possibly the most interesting man in Canada, this is no joke, Matt will back me up on this. It was
Don't get too deep, Chris. You already spilled the beans enough about him on the last one.
Yeah. The
Am I
most
not- am I not
interesting Canadian man.
Am I not supposed to talk about this?
No, you can just
Okay.
save room for all the other stuff that we did.
Okay. Well, he's an incredible trapper.
Most-
I would say he's
Most
probably
interesting man of Canada.
he was one of
We'll leave it at
he was
that.
one of my highlights of the trip for sure.
Did I meet him?
Classic Matt. That's why we bring Matt on the podcast. He's my cynical friend.
Who is this man?
He was this
Okay,
man.
so now we heard his story, and we
Yeah.
heard your other friend's story that was up there. Now let's hear your story,
Okay.
Chris.
So there
I think
was.
it's time we give the viewers what they want.
Well, we're going in chronological
Are you
order
not
anyways.
entertained?
Yeah. So
Would he be the next one then?
I think so. I think it was the next night.
well, my dad, who we'll have on eventually here, he had shot the third night. He'd shot a bear because you had shot second night, right?
Yeah, but your dad,
Did he shoot one
No,
the
I
second
think
night?
he shot
your
one on
dad
the
was the
same night
first one to
Matt
put
did.
one down.
Was he?
We got it the next morning.
It wasn't the first night though. It was the second night. And the next morning.
I don't know.
So it definitely wasn't the first night.
So maybe I shot the third night.
Okay.
So
That doesn't
were
make
you the
sense.
only one that saw bears the first day then?
I don't know.
We didn't. Me and my we show up, right?
Yeah.
Matt had flown in.
Yeah.
We had driven. So we got a truck. It's me, Leon, Brent, my dad, and the camera guy, T, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we drive up from Stanwood to East Jesus, Alberta, which was freaking forever.
Way north.
Dude, super north, right? And luckily it had rained right before we went. It put out a bunch of the fires. They got a bunch of arsonists up there, climate change sacks of shit, lighting fires up there, unfortunately. There was, like, Google it. It's
They're
terrible.
save the environment by burning the earth to the ground.
Yeah, they're trying to,
Oh.
like, prove, like, oh, look, climate change. And so they light a bunch of fires. And they're like, well, they can figure that out. Dum-dums.
no.
People are starting to catch on to that.
Yeah. So, anyways, we drive through all the smoke and the burned property and get up there. And Matt's already in camp, And he's like, yeah, welcome to camp. And we're like, oh, all right. So we get up. There's wall tents set up, and we get all our stuff set up.
I had a terrible flight up there, by the way. It was really rough.
It was.
It was a lot of
How
work.
long was the flight?
Well, it was 3 different flights, but
Oh,
it was still not anything
Not
compared to riding in a
driving
car for 20
what?
hours.
Yeah,
one-
how long
one
was
days.
it?
One truck, 5
It
guys.
was like
One truck-
3 flights, an hour and a half, 2 hours long each. But I did have a plane breakdown. We had to turn around. They did lose my guns.
Oh, cry me. a
There
river.
was all that stuff too.
Here we go, guys.
Here we go.
Back to me.
Yeah.
Everyone's got that liquid courage in them now.
So we drive all the way to camp. We meet Matt, and it was surprisingly hot.
Super hot.
I was really surprised how hot it was. And so we get all our stuff out, and we're getting everything set up, and we drug a trailer up there because so in here, Washington, where we're sitting, like all of us cumulatively, like we hunt, I I mean, like, obviously I have a lot of taxidermy, but we hunt for meat, right? I'm a meat hunter, right? Like, I want to fill the freezer. I want some steaks, and I want pepperoni steaks, and I want ribs. And, like, we literally just did a video of, like, cutting up a bear out in the yard, right? Like, we go for the meat, right? So we drug. Leon has I don't know, my buddy Leon drug his trailer up there. It was like a 20-something foot, like, cargo trailer full of coolers. Specifically because you can only bring, like, 4 pieces of luggage back on the flight that Matt took.
Yeah.
Right? And, we're not all bougie rich guys like Matt, so we had to, like,
It was hard. Those small planes, small seats, small seats.
So we
No movies.
No movies. So we drive all the way up there. We got all these coolers, and I'm talking, like, I brought my, like, Cabela's 400 quart cooler, and, like, we have all these huge, like, Leon has, like, a fleet of Yetis, and coolers on coolers, right? For meat. So we get up there and we pull up this big, huge trailer. We back it up to the tents, and we're unloading our stuff, and we're all super excited, right?
Super jacked already.
Oh, I'm super jacked because, like,
got there.
We're not guided hunt guys, right? That's just not my MO. Like,
it's a new experience.
Yeah, I'm a DIY, but my dad is 70 and he's getting old, and I was like, I wanted to do something with him, and like, he is super jacked, right?
Yeah.
He's got these busted ass knees and these old hips, and he's like, he's like. I mean, he's still getting along, but, like, me and Matt almost killed him last year in Montana. So it's like we gotta take it easy on the old man.
Yeah.
So we get him up there, super excited. We get out the first night, we sit there, and we're just. I mean, you're sitting in this, like, they put us in a ground
Just
blind.
sitting there, you're jacked.
Oh,
right?
super jacked,
Yeah.
right? So it's me, my dad, and the cameraman is sitting behind us, and I know I'm talking, like, in a blind smaller than where we're sitting right now. I mean, me and my dad's is bigger, if not bigger than me, and we're shoulder to shoulder, and he's got his crossbow, I got my cannon, and then T's got his camera behind us. And we're sitting there the whole night, we're just, like, on edge, like,
It's going to happen.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Every time T would open a snack, I'm like, T, shut up! You scare the bears away. Quiet.
Poor T.
Oh, he's so hungry. He's the hungriest little guy I've ever met in my whole life. So we go the whole night. We don't see anything. We come constantly. I'm getting texts from Matt. Check out this bear. Check out this bear. And I'm like, he's like, how are you guys doing? Because we're on a group text, right? And we surprisingly we have service up there. I'm like, yeah, no bears. So we go back to camp, and you get back to camp at, like,
right. You're in your head. You're like, this mother.
Oh,
effer.
big time, big time.
Yeah, and I could feel it.
Oh, just like
You guys see anything?
Like, we got the I got this professional cameraman behind
Yeah.
us. This is a big production and all this. Like,
You're probably thinking, what'd you say to the guy to get at a good spot?
yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm thinking. Like, and
And I'm like, I'm gonna pay this guy to put these guys in a tree stand tomorrow because I'm not going back in that thing. Like, what's it gonna cost me for you to take Chris and his dad and tell them they both have to get in that tree stand?
the best part was Matt shoots these 2 bears, and I'm like, I need to get more bottles. And he's like, more bottles for what? And I'm like, oh, we're not allowed to, like, pee in the blinds. We got to pee in all these freaking bottles and all this stuff. And then Matt's like, no, I just pee in the blind, and I'm just taking dips and spitting everywhere. And I'm like, they said we can't do that, And he's just like, well, maybe you should. Maybe you should do that.
That's the secret.
And I should have done that.
They got, like, bottles of Gatorade in the back of the rigs when they come back, and they're like, Matt, well, you saw a lot of bears. Are you doing this? Are you peeing in bottles? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing any of
not
that.
doing any of
I'm not
that.
doing
No.
that.
I stand up and turn around.
You know what's funny is Chris had to do that, and he killed that bear this last weekend.
I did. Although I dug a hole.
Wait, did you pee in the bottle or?
No, I
No,
went.
he stepped out of the blind
Yeah.
and pissed out behind the blind. And then got back in.
He did that when we were deer hunting too. A couple times, he would just, like, I don't know if this is appropriate for a podcast, but, like, he was like, kind of put it, stuck it right out this little zipper of the blind, let it rip.
Sometimes you just got to put it out the blind, dude.
Hell, it was discreet at least.
Well, the worst part is, like, these blinds are 4 feet tall, so you can't stand up. So you need, like, 4 foot of hose to get out the side of the blind. And I'm like, well, this obviously not going to
Dude,
work.
I
Can
think
we
we're
get
onto
some
something.
kind of demonstration of your body position while you were doing this?
Well, you can imagine the blinds aren't even that tall.
No.
And he doesn't bend
No, watch
well.
it, watch
Yeah,
it.
I'm all metal, so I'm just like, I gotta pee.
How have you not bent one of those rods in your back?
They're probably banned, dude. I'm sure they are. So
Continue on.
So
sorry.
Continue on.
So should I tell my dad's story, or should I just kind of skip over it?
You got 3 bears that you got to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's up to
I'm
you.
gonna skip.
It's
No,
your-
we're
let
gonna have the old man on, and I'm
let
gonna,
the spirit guide you.
yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
skip over
let your
because
dad
my
tell
yeah.
the story about
So I'll
his
skip over my
experience.
dad's. So, he shoots a bear. The next day, nothing, and then he's like, "Hey, my guide is super great, guys. Rod, and he came, oil field worker guy, and he's like, hey, I came to just like I don't do this full time, right? I run a big oil rig, and he was a big to do out there, but he'd been a guide for a long time, been all over the world, hunted everywhere. His big bore rifle collection was incredible, by the way. Like, I mean, so I brought a 470 Nitro Express, right, double rifle, and absolute cannon of a gun. And he's like, oh, that's cute.
That's cute.
And I'm like, what? And he shows me a picture of this, just a wall, and it's all giant big bore rifles.
Really?
Yeah, all like custom. Like, I mean, the guy had incredible guns, and I'm like, holy shit. So I'm like, well, we start talking guns,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, what would you do? And like asking all these questions, and just a good guy, like he was a good guide, but like the kind of guy like I'd have a beer with that guy, good dude, right? And I feel like he tried really hard, so he's like, hey, I got a bait. It's a drive though, and we can't take the forward. We got to take the Argo. And he had his own personal Argo on tracks there, and he's like, we're gonna have to take the Argo out. It's gonna be tight, and it's like an hour and change to this bait on an Argo, and you're going on like these it's like a pipeline road basically, but it's like marshy tundra, boggy, it's a shit. There's no way. There is zero probability of ever getting a vehicle out there. Zero.
Yeah.
Never ever happened. I mean, the stuff that we went through, like we had to winch through like 4-wheelers, the guy on like the 6x6 4-wheeler and like.
Didn't you tow him for a while?
Yeah.
Just had to hook him up and tow the 4-wheeler
With
for a
the
while.
Argo?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Because this tracked Argo is just,
Yeah, those things are
when
monsters.
when you're in the marshy stuff,
yeah.
the wheeled machines aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
There's
So
a reason why Argos were made.
it was awesome.
Yeah, exactly. There's
So
a reason why those.
me and my dad in the back, Rod's in the front driving, and then T was sitting up there, and we go all the way out, and Rod goes, hey man, I want to show you something. And I'm like, okay. And he pulls this picture up on his phone, and he shows me of this freaking smasher bear. I mean, just a freaking like bodybuilder of a Bruin, right? And he's like, this bear's been coming in. This is what we're going to do. And I'm like,
Yeah, you're already jacked and you're just on
Yeah.
the ride.
tell me more.
Tell me more.
And
you
he goes-
caught my interest.
And he goes, so tonight we're going to do a honey boil, right? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Tell
Oh,
me
yeah.
more.
I know all about these. Like I've heard of these. Tell me more. Right?
we can't do them in our state.
Yeah, we can't do them here
Yeah.
because it's illegal. Thanks, Lorna Smith.
Yeah.
Jay Inslee.
We're blaming 90s bear baiting ban on
I
Lorna Smith.
just still hate that.
I love
Why
it.
not? Hate her.
Yeah.
Why not?
Let's just do it anyway.
Yeah.
So he gets
Who's Jay
up.
Inslee?
So, anyways, the people that don't know what a honey boil is, so imagine like the old U-Ban coffee can, right? Like the metal ones.
Yeah.
So he has one of those sitting there, and then he has like a can of baked beans, like size metal can, right? And he punched a hole through it, and he's got a metal little rod through there, so it sits up above inside that can, and then he takes a can of Sterno, lights it, sets it in the bottom, sets that smaller can inside above that flame, and then fills that can like, I don't know, a couple inches of honey, right?
Okay.
And so we're sitting there, and he comes back, and he goes, all right, it's going. He goes, in a couple minutes, you're going to start to see just little puffs of white smoke. And I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, just sit here. It's going to happen. Like, don't move, don't get out of the blind, don't do anything, right? So we're sitting there, and it starts going, and the wind, you can see the wind, and we're in the timber, right? So imagine I'm sitting in this ground blind they've made with like logs, like maybe it's like 8-inch logs, maybe it's like 2 or 3 tall, right? but it's
Okay.
with branches,
all
right?
Lincoln logged together.
Yeah, Lincoln logged together, but like they left the branches on, right? So the blind's probably like maybe like 3 feet tall, right, around us, and there's like sticks and brush and bushes and all sorts of shit like around us, and the inside is maybe like 6 to 7 feet wide. This particular one's maybe like 4 feet deep. So we actually had to put T, our cameraman, outside in the back, right?
Oh boy.
Yeah, which he was like freaking out, like he didn't have the safety of the, the blind inside. He's like, "What if I get it?" I'm like, "You're gonna be fine, dude. Don't worry." Yeah. So we're sitting in there. This thing starts going off, and the wind and again, like the pipeline road to the left, and there's a trail that comes in from the left to the right to the bait station, and then they have this like 55-gallon like blue drum, and on top of that drum is the honey boil, and it's going off. And it starts going faster, right? And the wind switches and it blows in our face, and it smells like heaven. It smells so good, right? Like,
so you can smell it.
oh, 100%.
So
I'm
bear,
talking like
100% is going to smell it from any distance.
yeah. And then it starts
Well,
going.
that type of when that scent is in that type of form, it travels like almost 3 or 4 times further than just like a vapor.
'Cause it says vaporized scent.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's a smoke. It's
Yeah.
going to go a lot further than, say, just if you squirt something out there and it gets travels.
It smells incredible.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
going to
wanna-
go much further.
What did you dip in it to try it?
What are you, a cop?
Yeah, exactly. I know you couldn't resist. You're like, T, just give me a snack. I gotta just go try this.
So I'm sitting there. I'm getting hungry, and I'm like, man, like that smells like really good because it smells like. It smells like honey, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then it starts going like the puffs, because it's like imagine like it like burps a little white delicious
Yeah.
burp, right?
Yeah.
And then the burps get closer and closer and closer.
And then they start changing colors.
And pretty soon it's coming out like full blown smoke, right? Like there's no pause, it's just smoke coming out. And it blows in our face, and it goes from like this nice sweet honey smell to like it smells like s'mores. Like campfire, like you're burning a marshmallow, right? And I'm like, that smells really good, right? And I'm like, man, and I'm looking at my dad. I'm like, it doesn't smell like s'mores. He's like, that smells like s'mores. I'm like, yeah, that's really good. We're gonna have so many bears in here because it smells like campfire s'mores, right? And we're sitting there, and like 2 minutes later, I look over at this honey boil, and there's a flame shooting out from the top of this thing, like 2 feet, and I'm like, oh shit. And the guy tells me, he's like, hey, don't get out of the blind. And I'm like, well, we're an hour and change back into the middle of East Jesus where the fires have been going like crazy. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna like, I look at my dad.
Be a good person and jump out and try and put a fire out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go, and I don't know this, but they have a real time. It's a cellular game camera,
Yeah.
right? So they see me get out of the blind, and I guess one of the guys were like, "Hey, why is this guy getting out of the blind?" Like tattling on me, right? Like, "Oh, this guy shouldn't be out of the blind, this rookie or whatever." And I'm just like, well, and I have a picture of it, and I mean, it's a 2-foot flame shooting out of the top of this honey pot. And so I get a bottle of water and go out there and put this thing out. And unfortunately, the sterno like burned out, and then we couldn't. Like I put more honey, we couldn't get it back on. But anyway, so we're sitting there like, well,
You put the fire out.
yeah, put the fire out. Like we didn't burn
Yeah.
the forest down.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of East Jesus. There's
Yeah,
zero
there's
fire
more
departments
important
coming out.
things than having a honey boil.
Yeah.
And catching
So-
the whole wood on fire.
We
So
don't
we're
need
sitting
more
there.
drives towards climate change.
Yeah.
So I text my guy. We have terrible service because we're way out there, and I was like, hey, just letting you know, we had a little bit of a fire. No big deal. I put it out, but we don't have a honey boil now, so I emptied everything out of my backpack, right, to go there because I just thought like going through the border. I'd never been. We brought guns. We had all this stuff, but everyone was like, "Oh, dude, they're gonna go through everything. They're gonna take all your stuff." So I took everything out. Like I had all my lighters. Like I had a gun and a knife, and that was it, right? And so I'm like, "Oh, I'll just restart it. It's okay," because I always have 4 different types of ways to make fire in my backpack. Guess what? Took them all out.
Took them all out. You got
Don't have
nothing.
anything. like nothing. And I'm like, dude, I would freaking die out here. I don't have a way to make fire. So I'm sitting there and I'm like upset with myself that I don't have all my stuff. And
Thanks, Trudeau.
yeah, thanks, Trudeau, you sack of shit. And my cameraman tasked me. So again, T's sitting up behind me. And imagine like if I'm looking at the blind again, as Matt said, I'm all metal, so I am turned physically like at 45, so I can shoot my gun at a 90, right? Because I just can't bend that well, so I can't see. Imagine like so I'm pointed this way, and the road is quick math 135 degrees to the left, right? So he's like in on that little trail from that log or that pipeline road comes a bear, and he's like, "There's a bear." I'm like, and I look and I can't see a thing because it's just brush, like
Right.
in the blind. And I'm like,
T's on the outside.
so T's on the outside and the back side of the blind.
He's like, let me in.
There's a bear. There's a bear.
He's losing his shit, dude. And my dad leans over
Shut up. Get it on camera.
and he can see around the blind. He can see, oh, it's right there. So I pull my cell phone out and I put it in my hand and I go up above over the brush in the blind, and I'm not shitting you. This thing's 4 feet. It's on the
Really?
It's 4 feet away. It's literally pressed against the outside.
Wait, and T's sitting on the outside.
But he's behind me, right? So between it's T, me, the brush, and the bear.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the bear probably went right by T.
No, well, it was in the front, right? So because T's sitting back behind me, he can see over my left shoulder,
He's probably
over to the trail, right? So he can see it come in, and then he loses it, and then it literally hangs a right, comes right to the blind. It probably smells all his freaking snacks he's been eating all day, And so this thing wants to see what's in this blind, and it comes right up, and I literally I pick my cell phone up, and it's right. I mean, it's like the blind, boop, and that it's right there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I let out a little audible gasp. I'm like, because I can see kind of my phone. I'm like, and I went like that, and the bear's like, ah, and it like runs off, scares the shit out of me. By the way, and I'm like, you could see it on. I got it on my cell phone because I'm videoing it, and I'm like, oh, and I got my phone kind of shakes like that, like, oh, geez, It runs. It's just a little tiny bear, It's not that big of a bear. And I was like,
It's probably more scared than you are.
I don't know. I'm pretty scared.
Did you have to change your shorts, Chris?
Well, I see this thing, but then I'm excited because I haven't seen it. Like my dad saw one bear, shot one bear.
Yeah.
This is the second bear we've seen the whole trip. Matt's seen 100, right?
And what day is this?
3 or 4,
Wednesday or Thursday.
4, I think.
I
Day
think
4.
Yeah, I think it was day. Yeah, it was
day 4.
It must have been day 4 because I was at camp when they're like, they keep getting out of their blind.
Yeah.
I think they have a fire going, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna get in trouble.
Right.
Like, oh, Chris is doing a boil or something we're not supposed to be doing, and
Yeah.
he doesn't realize the cameras are. And it was all, fine, but I was worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bear comes out. I'm super excited. I'm like, oh, should I shoot this bear? I'm like, I don't know. It's not a very big bear. And he turns. He's just rubbed. So it's spring, right? So when they come out of the den, they're super itchy, right? Because they've been just laying there growing hair all winter. And so they start rubbing all the hair off because they're itchy, right?
Yeah.
And he is just like rubbed everywhere. And I'm like, I'm not shooting this like sickly looking, cancer looking bear. Like, I ain't got no hair. And I just let him be. And he goes over and he starts getting towards that honey boil. And my guide told me, he goes, hey, if he gets towards that honey boil, you make sure he doesn't knock that can over. Even though the fire's out, I'm still thinking like it could be hot or, whatever. And so he gets over there and I'm like, hey. And I'm trying to be quiet because I don't want to touch it. And I'm like, I look at my dad and I look at you. And I reach back and there's like a 3-foot long stick, like probably like almost 2 inches in diameter, right? And I pick it up but you imagine the blind, right, and everything else, and T and all the camera, and I'm like, I look at this thing, it's like 35 yards away, and I go, and I freaking huck this thing and bean this bear square in the face, dude.
What?
As he gets up on the barrel and is about to get the honey boil freaking beamed him dead center right in the middle of the forehead. Swear to God. And he's like, and just got beamed by this 3-foot stick, right? And so he runs off, and I'm just like, yeah.
Jack
like,
did that.
Just like, look at me.
What are the
know?
chances?
Man. Yeah, suck it, Bomars, like, look at me go, So I'm all like jazzed up, right?
Man.
And so we're sitting there, and my dad's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" And I look at T, I'm like, "You got that on film, right?" And he's like, "No,
What?
no." I think
Oh my
he's sitting
gosh.
back there like freaking out. that
Shitting
he's-
his pants?
Yeah, he's gonna get it or something. So we're sitting there, and he comes back. And he's messing around, and he keeps messing around with that freaking honey bowl. And I'm like, and I'm looking for.
He got pegged in the face.
Yeah, it was a big stick
with a
too.
log. It wasn't a stick.
It was a lot to chase some of these bears off.
And he didn't care.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I'm giving him like,
They must have been used to it.
well, I think like Matt was saying, like it's a young bear, right? Like so he doesn't know.
They've
And so I'm
been
like,
chased off probably a handful of times. And
yeah, I'm
that's
trying
it,
to be
you
quiet.
know?
Hey, get out, And he's not listening, and he freaking knocks it over, and then he just and he freaking like literally back legs completely out, front legs completely out, and just lays on the ground, and has this can stuck over his muzzle, and is just like licking this freaking can of honey, and just laid there, and he's looking like at me,
Right
like
at you.
like suck a bag of dicks, dude. Like, what are you gonna do? And I'm just like, and I'm sitting there like cross arm, like this freaking, my guy's gonna yell at me because he knocked the honey boil over, and he's gonna chew the can up, you know. And so we're sitting there, and so he licks the can for a little bit, and then he gets into the bait. So they make these things called cribs, right? So they take a bunch of logs and lay them over the bait, so they can't get in there and just like eat all like it's like some sort of
They
grain.
can work at it for a while.
Yeah. But you could tell he was super nervous, because he would eat and then he would pop up and his ears would perk up and he kept looking at that pipeline road. And I'm just like, did not care about us one bit. Like we're being loud and, obnoxious. We were throwing stuff at him. Did not care about us, but he kept looking to our left at that road. And I told my dad, I'm like, God, I bet you that he's nervous of that big bear. Mm-hmm.
That
And
must be like the highway.
yeah, because obviously bears are like,
That's just where they.
oh, that's
came
right.
in.
They're gonna work the easy road, right?
Yeah.
Taking the easiest path.
And so he did that a couple times, and one time he just all of a sudden he bolts off, and I look back at T, I'm like, get ready, here we go, and I get on the gun, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just rigid, right? I'm ready to hairs up, and 10 minutes later nothing happens. So we kind of relax and sit there, and like 10 minutes later that bear comes back, and the little bear comes back in, and I'm like, huh. He does the same thing, and then like 20 minutes later he bolts off again, and I'm like, oh, same thing. Oh, here we go, it's go time. And I'm sitting there and I'm on the gun, nothing happens. I'm like, son of a bitch, but he ran off for a reason, right? I keep looking at this road and I don't see anything. So anyways, we sit there and we sit there and we sit there and we sit there, and I'm like, it's not gonna happen, like what the hell. And about an hour and a half goes by, and all of a sudden a freaking ruckus like erupts in the woods over where that little bear ran off, right? And so imagine like it's fairly open to the bait. It's probably like 30, 35 yards behind the bait. It gets kind of like more wooded for probably like 40, 50 yards. And then it's like you can't see anything. It's thick, right? And same goes to the right. So you can I wouldn't say you could see 100 yards. I don't think you can see 100 yards, like super max maybe, Mm-hmm. And I'm shooting that. I got that 470 double rifle with a red dot. So I can't really see for distance. You don't have binoculars, obviously, because you're hunting in the middle of the timber and you're only shooting 30 yards. So I'm sitting there, and this sound is just like, and it's dead quiet the whole time, right? I mean, maybe it's loud if you're watching bears all day, but I wasn't watching bears all day, so I'm not used to hearing any sound like Matt is.
Yeah, just bears all day.
So this bear,
Throwing rocks, the whole thing.
this bear comes streaking through the woods, but it's like 30 yards behind the base, so maybe it's like 60, 70 yards back, right? Just freaking ripping through the woods, and it looks. I've seen one bear the whole trip, so it looks absolutely massive to me, right? And because it was much bigger than this, definitely wasn't a small bear, right?
Was it the mangy bear?
And I'm like, oh,
Wasn't him.
Wasn't Tim.
Dad, you see that bear? Like, you mean the one that just made all the noise and was running through the woods? Yeah, of course he saw it, right? And I'm like, D, get ready. He's gonna come to the bait. And I'm watching, and this bear goes right by again, it's back in the trees, no shot, and it's moving pretty quick because it just blew out of the woods. Goes over, goes all the way through the woods, hits that pipeline road, and comes up. And I'm like, that bear's going to come up, hit that trail, and come into the bait, and I'm going to freaking smoke this thing, right? And I'm just like, trying to go, like I'm on Brent Thielen it, like I'm jacked up. I'm like trying to control my breathing. I'm getting ready, and I'm watching this thing, and I can see, like, again, there's a big pile of brush here, so I can see, like, the bait, the trail, in the woods, and I know that road goes back this way, and then I can't see anything until up here, and we're on the bait is lower, probably maybe 15 feet in elevation, comes up a hill, that pipeline road comes up a hill and goes this way. Well, that shitting bear just skips the road and skips the trail, keeps going up the pipeline road, right? And I'm like, oh shit. Because my gun, imagine, like I'm sitting in a chair with my gun mounted in a tripod and a gun saddle screwed in tight, ready to go, because I got this huge, 15-pound 470 Nitro Express, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like trying to process what just happened, because I know it's going up the hill. I can't see it. I can barely hear it. And I'm looking, and out of the corner of my eye, I see it like halfway up that hill, but it's pretty thick timber, and you can only see glimpses of black, right? And I'm thinking, like, this is I don't have any opportunity, right? Like, I gotta, like, I saw one little itty bitty bear, and I'm thinking this is a big bear, right? So I'm like, shit, panic.
You're probably thinking something went wrong. It's not coming in,
and it's going to go up that road, and it's going to be gone out of my life forever. And I'm going to have to cry myself to sleep.
The cowboy came out,
so I reach over.
What would John Wayne do?
I panic. So you can't just pick. I just can't pick my gun up, right? Because it's
Pilgrim.
This gun is so big and heavy. I got it screwed in to this gun saddle, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got to unscrew it just to even pull it out, because it's attached to the tripod. Yeah. And again, like Matt said, I'm all metal. I don't bend, right? So I unscrew it.
Old yoga injuries.
Pick it up. And the bear is, imagine, because my chair's at a 45 already, so I got to swing it. Now I'm at the bait, and now I got to swing all the way back around the road, and then the bear is up and past the road, right?
Like behind you.
Way behind me.
Yeah.
And it's thick timber, and I have like a 10-inch window to shoot. Again, I'm shooting a red dot on a 470 Nitro Express, and this bear's like 70, 80 yards.
It's a poke for that.
Yeah.
You don't have any optics.
And
really.
again, like I got to swing all the way back around, no rest, no nothing. And so I pick the gun up, and I swing it around, and I swing it up over the blind, and I'm back up over the tree, and I pick that one little window, and like a second goes by, and that bear steps in, and for some reason, I don't know why, I go, being classic deer hunter, I'm like, meh. And that freaking bear stops in its tracks and looks at me, and as soon as it stopped and I touch on black, boom, I freaking touch off of that 470. And that bear freaking tea kettles, man. I freaking hammer this thing like a truck. And it
just drops right there.
Oh, it just drops, and it just kind of like rolls down that little hill. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe I made that shot. Like I'm just super jacked. My dad's like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God. We're high-fiving. And I'm like, well, I've never shot anything with a 500 grain 470 Nitro Express. Maybe it'll run away. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I instantly hop up, throw my safety on. I hop out the back of the blind, and we basically like get out like halfway through the woods, and I'm looking, and the bear's like, obviously, I mean, it's freaking DOA, dude. There's no pulse, right? And I'm like,
500 grain bullet.
Yeah. And T cameraman comes up behind me. T's like, and I'm like, okay, I just shot a bear, and I think it's dead. I'm not sure, but we're gonna find out. And okay, here we go. And like we walk up, and this thing is literally laid out It's been dead for, as soon as a bullet struck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's laying on its back. And as soon as I walk up, I see it's a big sow, but it's a sow. And I'm like, that's not the big bear. And I'm so disgusted and disappointed with myself because I thought it was the big bear, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And the big
And it was
bear's
still a nice bear.
It's a great bear. It's a super nice bear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I literally I take my phone out of my pocket. I break the gun open. I take both the shells out, right? Because I just shot a cannon in the woods.
Yeah.
There's not going to be anything around for a million miles now, right? I throw the shells in my pocket. I take my phone out. Click, click. Take 2 pictures.
First mistake right there. Never take the bullets out of your gun when you're in the woods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and T's like, you want to take some? I'm like, no, we'll do it later, dude. It died in the road. So my dad's like, oh, good job, son. I'm like, yeah, thanks, Dad. Like, yeah, I shot a bear, like, hey, let's go sit back in the blind. Like, it's not the big bear. And so I'm thinking like I could just walk down the hill and walk in the trail, or we'll just walk back through the woods the way we came. But it's like, it's woods, right?
Yeah.
And there's like fallen trees and shit like that, and I kind of just stomp back. Like, it's noisy. It's like super noisy.
Yeah, there's no way of being quiet out
Yeah,
there.
Right.
No.
There's leaves and all sorts of shit. So we're walking back, and I get to the blind, and I'm about to take a step over the logs into the blind. And I hear like this big crash behind me. I'm like, oh, and I look back, and it's my old man eating shit in the woods. He tries to step over a log, can't get his old mechanical knee over this log, like crashes down, and the cameraman is back with him, right? Because T's got like 6-inch legs. He can't make it over the logs. He's an itty bitty guy.
Sorry, T.
Sorry, T. And so he's back there helping my dad. My dad's falling down. I'm like, these guys, And so I pick my foot up and I go to step over the log and I step down. And imagine the bait is like, I don't know, at my 9 o'clock. And I look at my 11:30 and there is a freaking giant bear staring at me.
How far?
Like 35, maybe 40 yards.
Oh, jeez.
And it was like walking down, and it was turned. The front part of it was
So
turned.
he had to have heard all this commotion.
Oh, 100%.
He was probably sitting there the whole time watching.
And he's
it.
probably like, I'm the king of these woods.
So my thought
Yeah.
is, I think he chased that sow
became
out of
the
the
king of
woods,
the
right?
woods.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the rut, right?
Yeah.
So he's
He was
not,
probably chasing that sow. He probably got that sow going.
and he's
Yeah.
not looking directly at me, right? He's kind of pointed downhill a little bit, but there's a big tree like right behind his shoulder, and I'm like, I see him, and this guy, like, imagine like, not even Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, I'm talking like now, like Ronnie Coleman. This
He's
is a
the
Ronnie
Ronnie
this is a Ronnie
Coleman
Coleman
of
of Bears, right? And he just looks jacked, and it's like his feet are turned in, and he's looking at me, and he's all neck, and he's like looking into my soul. Like, I might have peed a little bit, I don't remember. And so I look again. Now again, I just took the rounds out of my gun, right? So it's a break action gun, right?
First mistake.
And so my gun's broke over my arm.
Oh,
and
no.
and I'm like, shit. And I reach in my left pocket with my left hand.
So you're still straddling.
Yeah, and I'm straddled. I got one leg in the blind. I got one leg out of the blind. The bear's looking into my soul. And I reach in my pocket, and I pull out a round, and I go to put this round in my gun because I'm going to freaking blast this son
And
of
so
a
you're
gun.
keeping eye contact on this
Oh,
guy the
yeah.
whole time.
And he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. And I go to put this thing in, and I look down, and my round is a very generous gift from my good friend Matt Russell, which is also known as a Streamlight flashlight, which is the same exact size as the 470 Nitro Express. Exactly the same. It felt like a 470 Nitro, and I tried to load this Streamlight flashlight
Into your gun.
into my rifle, and I look down, and I'm thinking, you have got to be shitting me. And I'm like, and I just dropped the flashlight, like, imagine like slow motion. I'm like, oh shit, like
Which was really the part that hurt, right?
Yeah.
Like he just threw it in the ground.
yeah, like the Christmas Story, when the lug nuts, instead of fudge, I said, oh shit, and I'm like, and I drop it, and I'm like, I know I have a round in there at least, right?
Yeah.
Reach in there again.
And I shove my hand
one
in,
round.
and I reach in. There's one round.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking, oh shit, is it the fired round or a live round? I pull it out and it's live. and I drop it in, thunk, and then I got to close my gun. So this is a two-hand manipulation now. So I grab the front of the gun, back of the gun with my right hand, clunk, shut this thing. Again, this is all like slow motion, right? And so I pull the gun up, put it on the bear, pull the trigger, click. Nothing happens.
Wrong trigger.
Wrong trigger. I pulled the front trigger, which is the right barrel. I only got one freaking round in my gun.
the left barrel.
And I put it in the left barrel. And in my mind, again, and so I got to somehow I pulled off the bear because I'm trying to process this in my mind. And I slide my hand back, get it on the back trigger, pull up, and as soon as it hits black, boom! I touch off, and this thing starts just cartwheeling, spinning, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I hit him.
Yeah.
In the black, somewhere.
In the black.
I don't know,
Somewhere.
because now, total sequence, between the time I tried to load a flashlight into my rifle, by the time I shot him, it was probably 2 seconds.
But
that's how fast it was,
it
right?
felt like a lot.
It felt like a lifetime. 2 seconds.
Okay.
I mean, I can still hear my dad and T in the background trying to get over the slide. They have no idea what's going on.
No idea.
No idea. I shoot and I hear.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
They're probably like, what happened?
Yeah, I hear T go, exactly. He goes, what happened? And I shoot this bear, and this giant bear is cartwheeling, spinning, how they bite,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I see him spinning, and the same thing in my mind. And so now I got to dig it down in I got cargo pants, right? So I
Find another bullet.
find another bullet, reach down, break the gun open, empty casing shoots out, drop another one on the left, clunk, shut the gun, pull up, and he's kind of going through the woods now. The woods that I can kind of see. And he's probably at 60 yards now, and I pull up and I start to get on him, and I'm on him, and for some reason I don't pull the trigger, and
Just that slight hesitation.
slight hesitation,
Yeah.
and poof, he disappears.
Yep.
And then I hear crash, and then I don't hear anything. No death moan, no nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? I totally messed up. You always shoot a bear as many times as you can. Always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyone who's ever bear hunted knows
If it's still alive and kicking.
you shoot it.
Yep.
You shoot it till it stops moving. Mm-hmm. Because if you've ever tracked a bear, they don't ever bleed.
Yep.
They're
tough.
fat, and their hair soaks up. The fat will close the wound instantly, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
They won't bleed out. Where you can find them, right? They'll bleed internally, and then they'll go die in the deepest, darkest, shittiest
that
hole.
you're never gonna find.
You'll never ever find them.
Downhill against a log, under a log.
100%.
In a
And
hole.
so I instantly text my guide told me one thing. He goes, you shoot that bear and you kill him dead in the spot where you shoot him. I do not want to track that bear. And I'm like, I had one job. I had one job, was to kill this freaking bear where he stood, and he freaking ran off, and I could have put another round him, and I didn't, and I hesitated, and it's eating me up. I mean, I'm sitting there, and I literally text him, I go, I just had a rodeo.
He's probably like, what does this mean? I don't know, eh?
And I said, Doug said I got to quit dropping F-bombs on the podcast, and I say, I F'd up, and I should have shot him twice. I only shot him once. I think I hit him low. Because I'm second guessing myself, right? Because I can't
you
see
just shot him with a nitro and he didn't drop.
Yeah,
so you're what happened?
Because I shot this other bear and it died instantly,
Yeah.
right? And he ran off. Now, granted, he's 37 times as big, right?
Yeah.
But so 45 minutes later, the guy and he hauled to get there, right?
He
and
must have been
and
flying.
he shows up, and it's just eating me up. And I'm like, I tell my dad and T, hey, you guys go over here, over by the road. It's dark now, right? Put my headlamp on, and I already had went over and checked for blood. I said, yeah, there's good blood. We're going to fall some blood. My guide comes out, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And I start tracking this bear, and he's looking. I go, I got blood over here. Okay, I got blood over here. I got my headlamp on max, right? I got my 470, both barrels loaded, safety on, but at the ready.
Yeah.
but it's getting thick, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm like a husky fella, right? And I don't fit through all these little pecker poles and all these branches. I'm getting poked, and I'm trying to pay attention. I'm trying to listen, and all the senses are on 12, And we get out to that timber, and right at the edge is super thick brush, but there's a super deep game trail that goes through there. Because again, it's like marshy. It's like super soft, right? Like tundra, right?
Right.
Oh, he went to the right. So we start going to the right, and I'm trying. Oh, I got blood here. Okay, I got blood here. And I look at him like, oh, we don't have very good blood, man. Like doubting myself. I'm like, wait, this is not a good blood trail.
Should have brought a bigger gun.
I'm thinking, I've shot enough animals, and I've tracked enough animals, and I've guided enough animals to know like what a good blood trail is.
It's not a good feeling when you start to get that in your head.
Yeah, hundreds of animals I've probably done this with,
Right.
and I'm like, this is not a good blood trail, and I'm like, and then I'm thinking like I'm doing a bad thing because I'm supposed to be the client, he's supposed to be the guide, and I'm like, and he has a rifle, he has a sweet freaking badass 450 lever action he's got, and I'm like, hey man, you want to go first? Like you're the guide. I'm sorry, I'm like taking over, and he's like, yeah, I got this, and he gets up there and he takes like 6 steps, and there is like a freaking, like someone took a garbage can of blood and dumped it on the ground, and I'm like, son of a bitch, and he goes, your bear's right there. And I'm like, I'm talking like 50 yards from where I shot him.
Really?
That's where, deader and shit, just laying there.
So it must have been a decent shot then.
Oh yeah, dude, it was the perfect placement. So imagine, right? If I'm up to the left, I'm uphill. His vitals are covered, right? And right in the crease of the shoulder, high, I hit him and drove it all the way through and just emptied everything.
Yeah, he's a giant, so he just took it and just...
It was a massive bear. Yeah. And so there he was piled up, and then we had to...
It was all pure reflex.
Oh, my God, yeah.
All adrenaline.
I've never done that with the reflexes. Shot an animal like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the feeling to just see them there dead, and then like all the guys came in, and we had to haul them out through the stick ass brush. And
how did the guide react when he found it? Was he like relieved, or was he?
Oh yeah, he's just like.
And it was the one that he was telling you.
Oh yeah, it was, and he was super pumped for me, and high five, and
because you're tagged out at that point.
Yeah,
You're
I
done.
mean, I literally shot 2 bears within like 4 minutes, maybe. Mm-hmm. That might be pushing it.
Damn.
Yeah.
And so T and your dad are probably like.
So at this point, they're
What
getting
is
up off
going
the
on?
ground.
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your dad's like probably confused as hell as to what just happened. All he knows is you just walked towards the blind and then shot again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was super incredible. And then some other stuff happened after that, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
So what happened?
2 seconds. I gotta get a refill.
All right, Matt, why don't you
refill story?
pick up with your?
Well, I think that night I was at camp, and luckily I got to go out and film the next couple days after that because I'm tagged out. So
Right.
what
So
are
you
gonna
had
do?
all this time on
They
your
hadn't-
hands just
yeah.
to sit and watch bears.
They said we could shoot wolves, but nobody had seen any wolves in weeks, and that wasn't happening.
Right.
So
Bears probably had them all driven out of there.
yeah, I don't.
Probably all over the place.
So, one blind that both Brent, who was on here, was in. He had a lot of action one night, and then the next night, this guy JC, who a lot of us didn't know each other before the trip, but then some of us did,
Yeah.
and he was in this blind, had a ton of action all night. He had cubs running around. He had cubs that were apparently by themselves running up trees, getting chased up there by boars. He had shot his first bear, and the next night he came into camp even more excited, not shooting anything.
Really.
And I was like, I was expecting to get this passion, this excitement out of you when you shot your first bear last night.
Right.
But you're so fired up because of just all the bears you saw tonight. And he goes, yeah, this is where Brent was the night before. There's just bears all over, but they're not really shooters.
Right.
I end up going out with him the next night to film. He's a crossbow guy.
Okay.
And So I got camera equipment, whatnot. We have to carry. We end up walking into this same spot, the same blind they're in. And he. So this night before, the important thing is, he had a bear come into his blind, literally climb over into it. I had one get a couple feet away, and I had to shoo it out a couple times. And he's got great video of blasting this bear in the face with bear spray.
No kidding.
I mean, and the video does it no justice because he goes, Matt, wait till you see this blind. It's like 2 3-inch logs stacked, as Doug put Lincoln logged,
Yeah.
with the thinnest brush you've ever seen around it. And it's tiny. He's like, when I shot the bear with bear spray, I fell out the other side of the blind. So we walked in and we're carrying chairs and everything. And he's like, I don't know how we're both going to. He's a big guy.
He's a big guy. Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know how we're both going to fit in this blind. So I roll into this spot carrying it. And we had bears right off the bat. You know, same thing. Like we're both sitting there. We both saw tons of bears. JC and I think probably saw the most out of anybody.
So yeah, for sure.
And we got bears, but they're small. We got 2 small ones in there. We got another big one coming in. But the blind was kind of in a weird situation where the bears could get completely around you in no time. Like they could just sneak up on you and you wouldn't see them till all of a sudden they're 6 feet
They're
away.
there.
Yeah, just the way the terrain was. And the night dragged on. No shooters came in, but we were seeing bears. We were popping up and just kind of having to really keep our eye out. You know, and him after bear spraying the night before and having that situation, you know, we weren't sleeping out there. Well, we get a text from the guide that he's going to be really late coming in to pick us up because they were hauling out somebody else's bear. And it got dark, and we're like, yeah, this just doesn't even feel safe sitting in this spot.
Just sitting in the dark with a bunch of bears around you.
Yeah, and I mean, you couldn't see them, from
Yeah.
3 directions until they were right on you. We had bears eating the bait. They'd pull the bait down, and they were eating the bait 10 feet from us, like all night. You know, a bear would come up, and it would just poop right in front of you. You're like, and it's weird because after like this is Wednesday, Thursday of the week, and being around bears nonstop like that, you get comfortable. You know, you let your guard down way too much.
Yeah.
And
You
so
forget that they're a predator.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So he was kind of more wound up about it. I would say I was way too comfortable at that point.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's just walk out of here. You know, I had a bad deal in here last night. There's a ton of bears that I saw last night we haven't even seen tonight. Let's walk out of here. So we start walking out of there, and he's got a can of bear spray in his hand and cradling a lawn chair, and his crossbow's on his back. I got a lawn chair, all the camera equipment. Thanks to Trudeau, you can't, no sidearms or anything, which would normally be
Right.
certainly my situation up there.
Right.
So we start walking out, and we are on a quad trail, but it's a quad trail that you would be knocking trees over with the quad, right? It's thick.
Yeah.
And we get to a section, and granted, it's dark. We just had lamps, where there's tons of 2 and 3 inch trees on each side of us, and it's thick. And I'm a couple steps ahead of him to the right, and all of a sudden, 2 bears are just barreling down the trail straight at us. I mean, ears pinned back,
No shit.
full speed at us. And I mean, they're within 35 yards. Boom, they're there. And I just grabbed the chair, by 2 of the accordion chairs, right? I grab it with both arms and start running at the bears, yelling bear, because I don't know if he can see it. Now,
Yeah.
he's so big, he could probably see over me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very long until he's yelling too. And they veer off he started spraying bear spray.
Oh, really?
And the bears veered off to our right. And I back away from the right side of the trail, and he's backing away, but we only have like 50 inches, right? I mean, that's about how wide a quad is.
Right.
And the bears are in the bushes. And I look over my left shoulder, which is where he's at now, and it is just yellow mist in the air because it has nowhere to go. It's so thick.
The bear spray?
The bear spray.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't notice right at that second that it was already starting to hit us.
Yeah.
But the next thing you know, a bear comes out of those bushes at us, right? And it's 50 inches away from us.
No way.
And I still have my chair in both arms. And I just go after the chair, go after this bear with the chair. And as I'm getting to the chair, or getting to the bear with the chair, he lights up the bear spray again, right? And I don't know what's going on. But I'm backing away from that bear, and I am done. Eyes are watered, nose is going. I've never been bear sprayed before or anything.
Yeah.
I'm leaning over within a second. It's going down my throat. I'm starting to puke a little bit. I puke on the chair.
Well, what he doesn't say is he's in front, right?
Okay.
The bear comes out to eat Matt. Matt has a $3 Walmart chair he's going to fence this bear off with.
Oh, absolutely.
JC pulls out he's got his bear spray, it's his canister, and he's going to bear spray the bear as Matt is going to like attack. And we're talking like from me to you.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
that's how close
it's
this
tight.
is. Like he could punch this bear in the face, and JC hammers the back of Matt's leg and the back of Matt. And imagine it's like a fire extinguisher, right?
Yeah,
with this bear
I've
spray.
seen it.
So he bear
Sprayed
sprays
out before.
He bear sprays the shit out of Matt and the bear at the same time, right? And they're in this cloud of bear spray in this tight space.
Oh my god.
And I don't know any of this is happening.
How come I didn't hear this story before this?
It's
Oh man.
Yeah.
so good. I mean, it's unbelievable. And people are like, were you scared or whatever? I go, I just was like reacting. But I backed up and I'm just like, everything's going off. He's affected too. I don't know how bad.
100%.
And I'm just like, and he's like, we got to get out of here. Like, we couldn't go the way we were going because that's the first direction
Yeah.
the spray went. But like after 20 seconds or something, he's like, hey, we got to get out of here. The bears are still right there. I mean, they're definitely within 15
Why
yards
are they
of
just
us.
hanging out?
Well, probably because they're bear sprayed. They're probably just like I am.
Just
Right?
like, yeah.
They're
I can't see anything.
but you don't know. You had two bears coming at you. I know he got spray on one of them. They
Yeah.
turned in the woods. I don't know if that's the one that came out after us. I don't think they were running, and I guess this is an important point. I don't think they were running down the trail when we first spotted them because they were coming to kill us, right? Like they were probably running from something else, or they were playing or something. But if all of a sudden you got two bears running down the trail, and all you see is their eyes lit up and their ears are pinned back, and
yeah.
I mean, what do? I just started screaming bear and, trying to make yourself look big and threatening. So he's like, hey, let's get down this trail. I think there's an opening down here, a clearing. And we get down there. It's a T in the trail. And I'm like, oh, I got my chair still, and it's got vomit on it. So it's a better weapon now as far as I'm concerned. And, you get down there and we walked out. But, I mean, even when we got to that clearing and stopped for another probably 2 minutes where we're just trying to be able to breathe again and see, the bears are still just in there thrashing about, running around, doing whatever.
Probably chasing each other.
They weren't covering any ground, so I think they were probably like rubbing their faces, trying to get bear spray off, or doing something.
Just dazed and confused.
We walked out the rest of the way, and very quickly after we got to the point where we got dropped off, different guides pulled in to pick us up. And I'm like, do you have any baby wipes? We're going to a camp. We don't have running water. I got bear spray all over me.
Bear spray all over me.
And they're like, why do you have bear spray all over you? And then they're like, well, why didn't you stay in your blind? And we're like, we probably would have had those bears rush at us in the blind.
They probably would have climbed in with us.
Yeah. And so 5,000 baby wipes and a half-hour ride back to camp. I think I'm doing okay. Kind of had different hot spots developing all over my body, your ears and your eyes moved around, super weird. I'm like, what do you do here?
Right.
And got there and tried to clean the vomit off the chair a little bit for the guide because it wasn't my chair. And went in the tent. I didn't really talk to anybody because I was still burning a little bit. And I'm like, I got to get my contacts out of my eyes, And then Chris rolls in, and I got like a mirror. I'm kind of new with contacts, so I'm not like good at it or anything. I'm like, got to hold this mirror. I had to get these contacts out. I tried to do my hands again with more baby wipes. I'm really upset Chris didn't film more of this, but he did film some of it.
I felt pretty bad.
As soon as I tried to get the contact out of my first eye, it was like shoving bear spray in my eye. As far as the eye went, it was way worse than when I was initially sprayed.
Oh boy.
And I'm trying to get it out, and I'm using eye drops, and I'm just lighting up. And the first eye, the first contact, now I can't open that eye. I mean, it was incredible. Finally, Chris went and got me bottles of water and laid on the floor and
Spread what? That's a good buddy.
Wash them out.
Lay down on the floor.
I videotaped a little bit. So he goes, "Hey, hold this mirror." I said, "Okay." And his face is this bright red. It's like tears come out of his eyes. He smells like shit. You know,
you can't sit down on anything because you're going to get bear spray.
Everything smells hot,
right?
You know,
Yeah.
and so he goes, "Hold this mirror."
Making my
I said,
eyes
"Okay."
water just thinking about it.
And we got a light, right? And he takes a contact out of his eye, and he gets it, right? Mm-hmm. And again, he's new with contacts. I couldn't do it. And he goes, and then all of a sudden he goes, oh, ah! And his eye just starts pouring tears, right? And I'm like, oh shit, are you okay? And he's just like, my eye's burning. And I'm like, oh no.
Just searching for like something.
Yeah, like I'll get you some water. But the problem is I still got this mirror, and now he has to take the other contact out. But he needs to look through the bad eye now that's burning full of bear spray to take the other, and he can't open this eye. And
it was weird.
And he can't very well see, you know, taking it out of the other eye with no other eye. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Well, I'm going to have to work on that skill level.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to be able to like just shut one eye and rip it out somehow. I got an eye thing
do
too.
it with your eyes closed.
Well, if you have an eye problem, touching
I don't like eye injuries. I don't like any of that
I don't
stuff.
like that either. My eyes are watering just being in there.
I know.
I could never watch people put contacts in, and this is something I've just been doing for a couple months, trying to get used to it. And it's like,
Man.
so this was just perfect.
It was a shit show.
But it was so funny, and I mean, you know, I knew he was filming me. I was just like, this is great because you know, I knew I wasn't going to die.
He can't see anything.
But,
He's like
yeah.
taking a knee. His face is like this splotchy
You're
red.
just having that experience.
Oh yeah.
The one experience you don't want to have. You're having
It's like cutting peppers, hot jalapenos, and then
you rub your eyes.
Yeah.
You're like, ah!
Pretty much.
But
late.
probably that times 100.
Too late.
I think for me, I think it was a little. I've gotten some habanero juice in my eye before because of doing that.
Yeah.
And this was, I'd have
Way
to say,
worse.
this was a lot worse.
It smelled worse.
Yeah, so it was really interesting because the outfitter, we were all sitting around, all the hunters and everything, and they're like, well, this is just crazy. You've had to deploy bear spray 2 nights in a row. You know, like how many people here have ever had to deploy bear spray on a bear? And the only person who raised their hand was the guy I was with, JC. And he had to do it 2 nights in a row. You know, and then, you know, he's like, well, I accidentally deployed it one time, you know, and washed my clothes a whole bunch of times, put them back on 6 months later. As soon as I got those clothes a little bit wetty, the bear spray reactivated. Like, you know, I'm like, I got my good hunting gear on. I got my backpack sprayed.
Oh, no.
Like, I got to throw all this stuff away. So I went and searched online for ways to clean this stuff out of your clothes and your gear. And I did not read a single story where somebody got bear spray on them by their hunting partner. Or, you know, but it was all accidental.
Right.
It was all accidental discharges going off in a toad or something, and guys talking about having to wash it out of their gear different ways. So I thought it was interesting. You don't see very many
people actually deploying it. In that.
And I would much rather have a handgun, for the record.
Oh, 100%.
Much rather have a handgun.
Would have been buying a third tag or
because
something.
it's like, yeah, it's like
You wouldn't be having no bear going, wow, what's
I'm
going on?
a-
I just got sprayed in the face with
I don't
something."
like to mess around kind of guy.
Yeah, no.
Like
it's.
if
I
I
mean,
had to
I'm
deploy
not-
bear spray, I'd
I'm
deploy.
definitely not a f- around and find out type of guy.
No.
So to speak.
No. Yeah, these Canadian outfitters wouldn't know what to think. There's a bunch of cowboys that came into camp in self-defense, killed the bears with handguns.
right? Yeah,
Because that's definitely what we would be doing. That's
100%.
100%.
maybe a
Thanks, Trudeau.
maybe a shotgun with slugs or something for walking around in those situations, or
470 Nitro Express, or
or something.
Yeah.
Maybe a sawed-off version of that.
oh, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nah, Trudeau wouldn't allow that.
Oh man,
he
that
wouldn't.
damn guy.
No.
Well, man, what a trip you guys took.
Yeah.
It definitely sounded like it was one hell of a rodeo. That's
It
for
was
sure.
it was a rodeo. We definitely got some stories. We got a bunch more stories too. So yeah.
So stay tuned. There's more to come. This is only part 2. We're probably gonna have another part 3.
Or part 4 or 5. I think
4 or 5.
Yeah.
We'll have the whole crew up here
Yeah.
on the podcast.
We'll keep rolling them in until we get all the stories out of them.
all the
Yeah.
stories out.
We got-
there's
More stories coming from
More
you two, too.
yeah. Me and Chris just went on a hunt this last weekend, so
Yeah.
that's to come. We
That was
didn't
a-
have it. We didn't quite have enough time.
It was
This episode.
It was a Washington spring bear hunt.
Washington spring bear
Little
hunt. We'll
sneak
just
peek.
leave it at that.
Suck it, Lorna.
Yeah. And all you internet trolls,
We stuck it to
we
the
don't need your
man on this
comments
one.
about how there's no spring bear in Washington. We know.
Yeah.
You'll just have to pay closer attention.
Yep.
I just hope we don't lose any more
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
hunting seasons here.
we're going to talk
I think
about that a
shit.
little bit next week, too.
Yeah.
We'll
about
get into it.
Some of the news on that.
So with that, we'll stay humble and hunt hard.